Well, as we mentioned at the top of the show, the president will address the AFL-CIO convention in Pittsburgh. The administration's adoption of higher tariffs for tires imported from China is being applauded by some unions here, but there is concern about what damage it may cause our relationships overseas. From Bachmann, what are you expecting to hear from the president today, speaking in Pittsburgh, as we mentioned, considering all the things that are happening, whether it's on trade or on health care?
I imagine what the president will be doing is also selling a decision he just made regarding China and the tires, and then also he'll also be selling his health care program. But the bigger issue, I think, that we're very concerned about, we don't want the president to be starting, in effect, a trade war. I come from an agriculture state. We are the 7th largest exporter to China, and we're very concerned about what we're seeing with this new legislation potentially, because we could be seeing American farmers hurt with a trade war. We want a level playing field, and we aren't hearing from the president talk about Panama trade agreements, Colombia trade agreements, South Korean trade agreements. Those are very important to American manufacturers. They would go a long way toward helping American ag and industry interests. But we're very concerned, again, that this move that the president is making will hurt American farmers and manufacturing.
Ambassador, the president has been very clear. He came out yesterday and he said that this will not spark a trade war. Do you believe that this is a risk? Is a trade war with China a risk based on the decision that we've seen over the last couple of days with this tariff?
I don't believe so. The United States exports only $1 for every $5 we import from China. So the balance is very much favor, and of the top dozen exports to China, fully 10 of them are raw materials that go into Chinese production and therefore Chinese exports. So China and the United States have a mutually interdependent relationship in terms of their economies. It would be a major error for the Chinese leadership to spark a trade war. I think the risks are low.
Congresswoman, you disagree with that. What's your response?
Well, we know that China has already filed a complaint with the World Trade Organization, so I think the spark has already occurred, and the president is the one who has made this decision. And I think I would take a contrary view that this administration hasn't done a lot for unions. The administration has done a lot for the unions. Take a look at the $1 trillion stimulus bill. There's tremendous amounts of money from the stimulus bill that have gone directly to unions. And I am not anti-union, but I think it's clear the union has a very large say in Washington, D.C. That isn't what elections should be about. It shouldn't be about which side benefits politically once one party gets into office. We should be about equal protection under the law. We want to make sure that all of America does well, not just specific politically well-situated interest groups.
But, Philip, what leads you to believe, contrary to what the Congresswoman was saying, that the unions have not necessarily benefited under this administration?
Well, I think it's just absurd to say the unions are running the show in Washington. If they were, their number one priority, the Employee Free Choice Act, would not be languishing in Congress. President Obama has done so far nothing for it because he's been focused first on economic stimulus, then on the auto bailout, and now on health care reform. He's done nothing, and therefore there's a whole lot, if you talk to union folks off the record, there's a lot of quiet frustration within the union movement about the lack of action for unions by this administration thus far. Now, the president's told them that once he gets health care done, he will go to bat for EFCA.
It's interesting to note that domestic tire manufacturers aren't happy with the president's decision because they see that they could be hurt as well with a trade war that would spark. And again, it's American manufacturing and American pork producers right now who are very concerned about this because American pork producers actually export about 75% of what it is that China is looking for. And so we're very concerned about what this is going to mean to an industry that's already hurting. So I take a contrary view to what my fellow members are saying.
Well, let's just bring this all together and kind of bring us back to where we actually started. Regardless of our different opinions on, and the opinions that all of you have shared on this topic, but there's a couple things that are true. The economy is in a recovery, or trying to be in a recovery mode right now. You do have the health care debate happening as well. You do have the president speaking to the unions today. So where do we go from here? You also have the Chinese, whether or not they're going to be able to appeal this tariff, are going to the World Trade Organization and are trying to change this, and also threatening our own imports, or exports, I should say, to China. What steps do we need to take to make sure, bringing it back to the economy, that we stay on a path that's productive for us all?
We can talk about theoretical fears of a trade war, and that's fine. What I'm more worried about is the actual deindustrialization of America that we've seen under not only the Republican but Democratic administrations. We've lost 3 or 4 million manufacturing jobs the last 8 or 10 years. If we don't continue to make anything in this country, we're not going to continue to be a superpower.
Congresswoman?
I would absolutely agree with Phil that I'm very concerned about the deindustrialization of America. I want to see America actually make things again. What's been invoked is Section 421. This is a kind of a case of first impression with the Chinese tires. I'm very concerned that other union-backed organizations will also be filing 421s, and we may see a further escalation, which would then bring about a trade war, not only with China, but perhaps with other nations. And I don't think that's the route that will actually help America to reindustrialize and create more great-paying jobs here in our country.
Congresswoman, when will we see a vote on health care reform on the floor of the House? When do you think that's going to happen?
Well, very interesting question. President Obama was in my state on Saturday in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I held a town hall meeting where I was listening to individuals across my state. The president was trying to sell his plan. People are not interested in the government taking over health care. I think that it will be a very difficult push that the president has to make, because he's pushing a very unsavory program to most Americans across the country. So I think that we may see this pushed back yet later this fall, or perhaps into the winter.
All right, so we'll put a to be determined on that. Thank you very much, Congresswoman and Ambassador, and also Philip Dine. We appreciate all your perspectives this morning.